G'day and welcome back to the Hidden Why podcast. So grateful for you to be joining me today. I hope you're well. This is an awesome interview that I've got to share with you today. And as always, check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. Show notes can be found at episode 1156. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe so you can stay up to date with all our latest episodes and everything happening here at The Hidden Why. Today I sit down with Nelson Dellis. Really cool conversation. Nelson is a 6 times USA memory champion. That just boggles me, the things he can do. And he shares some of those things live. So if you want to check out the YouTube video, please do. On top of that, he's a mountaineer. He's an author and also an Alzheimer's advocate. And today we explore how anyone can dramatically improve their memory, focus, and mental performance. Exactly what he's done, and now he dedicates his life to it. And in this day and age, let's be fair, we've got things stealing our attention, social media, tech. We've got AI coming in, stealing our creativity. So this is a very timely conversation, and one that inspired me and motivated me to incorporate some memory training in my day-to-day activities as well. I do hope you enjoy, guys. We'll catch up at the other end. And again, make sure you check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. Cheers. Nelson, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here.
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm excellent. Early morning for me, probably late afternoon for you.
Yeah, middle of the afternoon. All
Over there
good.
in New York City.
Yeah. Well, a little bit
Well,
outside, but
bit
more or
outside.
less.
When you say a bit outside, like what's a
Two
bit
hours
outside?
north,
Okay.
3 hours north. If in terms of how our distance is, if we're both outside the planet, I'm essentially on New York City.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 hour train ride or something? Is that sort of the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
gotcha. Nice one. Well, welcome to the show. Looking forward to discussing your work. I want to hear about your story as well, because that's kind of fascinating and what led you into your work. And it's not just about memory, but it's, about your hiking and expeditions that you do as well. That's quite fascinating. So
Yeah.
for the audience listening, everyday genius, hacks to boost your memory, focus, problem solving, and much more. I like this idea of genius level thinking, particularly in this day and age.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, that's why I wrote the book. But it's also, I think, a very important topic right now. Like this idea of using our brains is, there's so many tools out there that are helping us use our brains or doing it for us. And while that's immensely helpful, and maybe we're more productive than we've ever been in our lives, because of those things, it's if not used correctly, I think it can be a detriment to how your mind stays strong.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree totally. So I want to, obviously your book's got so much practical takeaways for people to help them with their memory, thinking, problem solving, cognition. So hopefully we can delve into some practical takeaways that you might share in the book. But let's go back a little bit to 2009. Your grandmother struggling with Alzheimer's. That was your point of delving into improving your memory and
Yeah.
changing things. What tell us the story there.
Yeah, that was the catalyst for getting me to where I am today. I was watching my grandmother's mind disappear before my eyes and saw how it was affecting her and obviously the family around her. And she was such a sweet person with a million stories about the family, the storyteller of the family. And, to see that disappear at the end of her life was crazy to watch.
Yeah.
Painful for all of us, but just like if you look at what the mind is capable of and suddenly it's not capable of that, it boggles the mind. So it inspired me to think twice about what it means to have a good memory and a healthy brain. And I went down rabbit holes learning about memory and how it works in the brain in general, and discovered this quirky little competition called the Memory Championship. And the rest is kind of history. I wanted to compete. I learned some of the techniques and was hooked.
Yeah, wow. So 2009, how old were you then and how old was your grandmother?
Yeah, I was about 25. My grandmother, she was in her late 70s.
Okay.
So not super old, but
No.
yeah, parents are her age when she was
It comes
training.
at it comes. I've never had anyone personally close to me that I've seen go through that, but I've known people close to me that have.
Mhm.
And it sounds terrible to be able, to watch that.
Yeah.
That's sometimes rapid decline in someone's brain and ability to use it. I don't know much about it, to be fair, so I'm going to just ask you questions about it. But dealing with that, why was it the focus on memory skills that made you think that that was your solution, I suppose?
Yeah, no, a good point. I had this thought like I got to do something for my own mind. I didn't quite know what that was. It was leaning towards something memory focused because that's the thing I saw that was disappearing. But I had never really thought about memory as something that you can change or improve.
Hmm.
Um, Through these books that I kept reading about neuroscience and the brain, there'd always be these aside passages that mention people with prodigious memories in history. And then once or twice, I'd see something written about a memory competition where, you know, casual competitors who had no uh, proclaimed incredible memories would train their memories with these ancient memory techniques and then
Yeah.
do this and this. And that was the first thing that got my attention. It was like, okay, anybody's doing this with techniques. What are these techniques? I've never heard of these techniques. I
Yeah.
knew like in school I had done little mnemonics to help me remember this thing, that thing, but I always thought of those as tricks, and there were just a few ones that could help you here and there. But my memory still sucked, right? The techniques or those little tricks didn't help me past that. So when I saw this, it really made me think like, okay, well, I can be training my memory. If so, what should I be training? What am I training for? Like, how do I know I've reached my destination? And so the memory competition was a great way to kind of give myself an immediate goal to go towards. And, it comes with all sorts of records that people have set. The competition itself, which like loomed in the distance in the next year. And so it gave me something to work towards. And I don't think without that, I would have truly had the discipline and kind of the structure to work on my memory.
Did you look into the science behind, memory loss or Alzheimer's and the ability to train your brain as a way to avoid that? Like, I mean, there's more and more science about it now, I'm sure, but
Yeah,
I mean, was that the sort of thought?
yeah, exactly. Right. So the
Yeah.
idea would be that as I strengthen my brain, right?
Yeah.
I build it up so it's healthier. And the idea is maybe down the road when I'm older and I'm getting Alzheimer's, maybe it's staved off by a year or 2 years or 6 months. I don't know, but something, right? Because
Yeah.
I have memory techniques in my bag, or these changed neural pathways through the training.
Right.
I learned a lot along the way. I didn't have all the answers. I still don't have all the answers. It's still unclear what are the causes, the direct causes of Alzheimer's. It seems more and more so that it's largely environmental based. So,
Yeah. Right.
food, a lot of things that go into
Yeah.
your lifestyle, what you eat, how active you are, how much you use your mind. Um, and there's this concept of cognitive reserves that if you can build those through different means, one of them being training your brain. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be in memory, but that could be one way. That people with more cognitive reserves will be able to stave off dementia
Right.
life.
When you say cognitive reserves, I mean, we've heard about it for ages. When I first heard about Alzheimer's, and they said, "Oh, you've just got to work your brain." So I think of Sudoku and crosswords and doing things like that to help my brain keep functioning and have it wire in different ways. So there's multiple pathways. What is a cognitive reserve?
Yeah, I think it's being able to challenge the brain, right? So Sudoku puzzles will do that. But with any skill, if you train it enough, you get better at it. It becomes easier.
Yeah.
Although, a Sudoku can still be challenging. There are harder Sudokus to do, and there's harder crosswords to do. But, there's a part of you that can get accustomed to some of the common answers, right? And it becomes a little easier, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that it's ever going to be a free walk in the park, but, our brain loves to figure stuff out and make it commonplace and easy. It doesn't like the feeling when it's something challenging or hard or demands a lot of cognitive processing.
Yeah.
But that's where the magic happens, right? That's
Right.
where you're building these cognitive reserves because your brain has to search for these different connections to make sense of something. And then when it does find them, these new pathways get reinforced that maybe you weren't using before. And the
Right.
more of these different connections that you have,
Yeah.
that's really what the cognitive reserve idea is.
Gotcha.
Not just like it's not like you have like a two-lane highway, right? That you use all
Yeah.
the time. Same thing you do
Yeah.
every single. No, you have like a massive super highway
Yeah.
of different ways to get to an answer, right? So you can imagine that maybe the two of those roads get cut off, right? This Alzheimer's is affecting that particular passage more than the others. Well, you have other ways to get to your answer, right?
Yeah.
That's a very simplified version
Yeah, but I
of the idea.
like that, and that's exactly how I'd like to explain it as well. So that's brilliant. So yeah, I mean that's what you've essentially done there. You've got many records. You've got two Guinness records. I'm interested in some of the challenges, the memory challenges that you've entered. Like most names in 15 minutes, 235 names. That's
Yep,
you're the
that's
current champion for that.
yeah.
Most words, most digits, most decks of cards in 30 minutes, 9 decks. So
Yep.
just break that down for us. Like, what is it? Most names. Like, what are you training for there, and what's the competition look like?
Yeah, so there's the US Championship, which is the specific competition I've won. There's World Championships, there's the UK Championships, there was an Australian Championship for a run there. And they're more or less the same structure where you're given something to memorize for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of it, and you have to obviously memorize as much as you can, as fast as you can, accurately. And mostly it's around memorizing decks of cards, numbers, binary digits sometimes, names and faces. So things that are a good representation of information in the world, but also randomizable and something that wouldn't give somebody who's just happened to be an expert in that thing an advantage, right? So there you won't find they won't test you on digits of pi or the periodic table because somebody might have memorized that already. And so we need to have something
Yeah,
that's
right.
can be shuffled and mixed, and nobody will
Bit more random.
have have the prep for it, right? So names and faces, for example, they use random faces that nobody's ever seen. The names are shuffled, and oftentimes in international competitions, they use really difficult combinations of names from all over the world. So you get some like German, godforsaken German first name and some crazy and hard to pronounce for me at least, Chinese last name. But yeah,
So
it's
what do you get? Do you get like 500 names thrown at you, and then you have to recall them within a certain amount of time, as many as you can, or how does that work?
yeah. So the names, for example, you'd be given a packet of headshots with first last names. The records make are changing all the time, so the amount that you're given is constantly growing. But let's say that I don't know, the last time I competed in the US, they maybe had like 170 headshots,
Yep.
right? It's about 340 names, something like that. And you get 15 minutes to look at as many of them or all of them if you can. And you have to write down as many first last names as you can. You get a point for each one. For the
Wow.
cards, for example, you get 5 minutes max to look at the whole deck of cards, but a lot of people do it in just seconds. So you can stop the timer as fast as you want, and people are doing
It
it in.
seems freakish to me to be able to remember a deck of cards in under 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, even just under 5 minutes. I mean, under 5 minutes is in competition is like for a baby. It's so slow.
Wow.
People, if you're competitive, you're doing it in sub 30 seconds.
Wowee. Okay. So you got to
Same
have
with the
some.
numbers. You get a really long string of digits on paper, 500 digits, and you get 5 minutes to look at it and memorize as much of it as you can in order.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations. That's
Thanks.
quite impressive. But as you say, anyone can do it.
And
Um,
listen, there was a time when I could not do that,
yeah.
right? A lot of people forget that, but I sat down one day, I was like, oh shit, I people are doing this, I can't do this. And I tried it one time, one day for the first time ever, and probably got a very bad score. And then I worked up to where I am today.
So are you allowed into casinos over there in Vegas?
No comment. Now
The
I do go in casinos. I like to play blackjack, but I've never been stopped by anybody saying, "You can't be in here. You're the memory champion." Nobody's ever said that to me.
okay.
So,
The I always think of memory. So for me, there's certain things I remember well. Like I'm in real estate, I can remember names pretty well. I remember studying for exams, and it was very much short-term focus. Try to memorize it, do the test, boom. No, I forget it. I never
yeah.
held anything. So you're talking about something quite different. Is training your brain to memorize things longer term as well, not just a short-term period.
Yeah, yeah. So the nice thing about memory techniques is that aspect that of memory that you're talking about, whether it's short term or long term, you decide. It's how you manipulate or use the data that you put in your mind. Um, that gets to be there for a long time or just a short period of time.
Right.
A lot of these memory techniques are really uh, understanding how memory works and playing to the strengths of what our mind likes and prefers, and understanding what it does poorly and kind of working with that to help you remember the things that you want. So, yeah, they're tricks and techniques, but it's also just taking advantage of what our brains naturally are good at. And one thing that our brain is good at, unfortunately, is forgetting. It's a forgetting machine. It
Yeah.
probably forgets the majority of information that's around us in the world. Thank goodness, right? Imagine you remembered absolutely every single thing that
Yeah.
crossed your mind, crossed your eyes, through your ears, what you felt, every little thing, every little paper cut in your life, you remember it equally painful and annoying, among other things, right? There's a reason why we don't remember everything because most of it isn't important for survival, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The problem with 2026, the current day, is that all of the things around us are relatively new abstractions for our brain, our primitive brain. So it doesn't know really how to correctly weed out what's noise and what's important. It makes kind of bad judgments on what is important or not. And so you forget
Gotcha.
the things you want to forget, and then you remember the stupid shit that you didn't want to remember, you know?
Yeah. 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 So I guess when we're talking about memory, because what would you say is like it's genius level thinking, but that revolves around memory, focus, learning abilities, problem solving skills, cognitive talent, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not just memory. I do think that's a big part of it. I think generally, if you have a good memory, you have the opportunity to be more genius seeming. Um, Not
So
everybody with a good memory.
is it changing training your memory then that will help to improve your ability to think, to improve your ability to problem solve? Is that sort of the idea?
I think so. I think, you have that's my belief. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
have good memory skills, you can read more and retain more. You can understand how to focus better. You
Hmm.
know how to study deeper. And I think with those tools, you'll have more knowledge in your mind, more ideas and concepts and strategies to use when you problem solve. Arguably, also to be more creative. And I think all of those things together can round out somebody's appearance of being genius.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Because right now, certainly in my life and a lot of people's lives, we've got social media, we've got short attention spans, lack of focus. The amount of people I speak to now that say, I can't even read a book, I can't even sit down and watch a movie anymore, because they're so used to now just that short, boom,
A
2 second
short form.
reels.
Yep.
So that's a big part of our world right now. And then AI, really is a great tool. But again, I just see it as going, it's such an easy way just to be able to not to think and get it to do the thinking. So taking away that cognitive ability and the ability to think, which both of those things I really think affect us on a deep personal level as far as how fulfilled we can live this life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of the arguments behind why you should memorize things, in my eyes, is that it's such a human quality that we have. And when you
Mm,
can remember something from the depths of your own mind, there's some ownership over that information. Like it's yours. It's part of you and this experience of being on this planet present with yourself and having a relationship with yourself in your mind. And when you start to lose that, yeah, you run into all sorts of existential questions like who am I and what am I doing in my life? Like you feel empty, and there's such an immense feeling of satisfaction when you memorize something. I know that sounds so silly, but it's true, right? If you spend an afternoon trying to internalize a poem that you've always admired or loved listening
right.
to,
Yeah.
it's at a point where it's in you. It's a part of you, this beautiful collection of words that is meaningful to you. Now it's in you, and you can say it as you want. You can feel it as you say it. Like that's a powerful thing. And if we never go through life doing that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like not to memorize poems to
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
but
No, a good
a
example.
metaphor
Yeah.
for many things. I
Well, like you said,
even
you get to choose what you want to retain and what you don't want to retain. And I guess there's techniques around that. Like, if you're remembering a deck of cards, you're doing it for the competition, but you don't
yeah.
want to remember that, 10 years down the track.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like right now, we still have the choice to use our minds. That may not be the situation in 10, 15 years,
It's funny
I
you
don't
say
know.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I was just thinking the same
Scary
thing. I'm just
thought,
thinking
right?
like right now,
Yeah.
like everything's in the cloud, AI, it's all integrated, and there's companies talking about going back to, their own databases to retain their memory. If you
Yeah.
look at the human brain as its own little cloud, if we
Yeah.
start plugging into the matrix or whatever you want to call it, like we're sharing that.
Plants and we're just outsourcing everything, and everything's out of us rather than some of it even being in here. What's left?
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna. I keep there's two movies that always come to mind when I think of like the dystopian future of our minds, and it's um the movie Wall-E. Did you ever see that one?
I
Pixar
have can't remember it,
movie.
but
It's not the main focus of the movie, what I'm referencing, but at some point civilization has gotten everybody on a big ship, and they're traveling to a planet that they don't even know where they're going because Earth is destroyed, and filled with garbage. So but everybody on the ship is just in a floating kind of bed, with a TV screen and big gulps, and everybody's fat and obese and just like mindlessly clicking and watching TV, right? That's one. And then the other one is uh frick, it's
that's depressing, isn't it? You think
what's
of it.
I can't think of the name. I just blanked on it. It's with
I'm quite
uh
happy to see that you can blank still.
oh my God. Yeah, yeah. This is showing that I'm not perfect, but this is a very human thing. I'll get it back to you. But anyways, it's
Yeah,
about the future and how everybody just got dumber and dumber.
yeah.
And it's yeah, it's exactly what's happening before our eyes.
Can't head that way. All right. Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty because again, I don't train my memory. I do Sudoku. I do like doing that, and I try and do one a day. I sit there on the couch and challenge myself, and it does make me feel good when I nut one out. And sometimes it can take a week to nut one out. But
Yeah,
for
feels
the
good.
novice, for me, someone like me, maybe where you began, to training your memory. What are those steps? What can you share with us to start doing that? And is it a regular thing, like a routine that you do, or is it just, memorizing a deck of cards to train it and then doing something else?
Yeah, I compare it a lot to going to the gym for your body,
Yeah.
right? You were saying, oh, I'm going to start working out, right? Well, you got to find some plan that you want to go do, right? It could just be you start running a lot, right? And in most cases, you want to have some pattern, right? Maybe you run every other day and you take a rest day over the weekend or something. And you're maybe running 3 miles a day, right? And maybe one day a week you push that a little bit, do 4 or 5, right? Or if you're strength training, right? There's specific machines that you work on. to build upper body and then lower body, right? Or you do ab workouts.
Yeah.
I think we all can understand that. So similar idea for memory techniques and training. I have a daily routine that I've got to hit, right? And if I don't, I feel like, I'm going to gain weight on the scale, right? And lose a bit of the strength that I had. So I'm motivated to go out there and flex my brain muscles. And I'm doing these different kind of workout machines. And the nice thing about competing in a memory competition is it made it very easy to have those drills. Like I knew what those drills had to be. It's like, well, I got to memorize cards, I got to memorize numbers, got to memorize names and faces, words, because that's what's going to be in competition. And the nice thing about it is it's very measurable. It's very quantitative, right? So I can see my result, I can get feedback and try to beat that score next time or go faster, right? Or
Yeah.
measure how I got things wrong, how things went right. And so I build my training routine based on kind of rounding out my memory and improving its speed and obviously accuracy.
Hmm.
Those are the main things, right? I want to be able to do it faster and more automatically with fewer or no mistakes.
Yeah.
And so by training those specific things, it rounds out my ability to memorize most things in life, right? Same way that a workout machine, you work out specific muscles. It's not like you go out into life and specifically you're doing this bicep curl movement or a single like kind of squat isolated. Usually in life, your dog runs away. You got to run after it, right? And maybe you dive to get out of the way of a car coming, worst case scenario. That's using your whole body, like, and you don't have to think about it. It's not like those specific muscle movements come into play isolated like that. We work out to be just generally fit. And so the idea here is train these different disciplines in memory, and then it helps kind of overall build out my ability to do it for anything.
Good analogy. So like working out in fitness, whether you run and go to the gym, same sort of thing. You're training your brain to be stronger,
Yep. Yep. And the,
essentially.
the big important part is feedback. If you want to get better at anything, you got to get some kind of way to measure what you're doing and
Right.
and compare it to where you were before,
Jumping
right?
on the scales, yeah, body weight.
Yeah.
What
The number list. Yeah.
where did you go to find the answers initially when you started, delving down this wormhole?
Yeah, there were not as many resources as there are now, but
Yeah.
there were a couple of memory champions that had written some books. Specifically, there was an audiobook by Dominic O'Brien. He was an 8-time world champion at the time. I mean, he still is.
Yeah.
He's retired. But his audiobook series was what I listened to. I was, taking a year off school and walking around the city where I was living. I was living in Chicago, and I was just listening to all the CDs on my CD player, and doing the exercises and getting hooked. And then after a while, that audiobook isn't training people to be memory champions, but it just opened the door to learning the basics of the memory techniques. And then, I had to kind of go to some competitions, learn the hard way, meet some others who were doing it. There were a few like blog posts from memory champions that had some details, but I mean, nowadays to become someone well trained for a memory competition is very easy because first of all, I've made dozens of videos about it, but
Yeah.
there's tons of tools out there and forums where people talk about it at length.
Yeah. Okay. So plenty of resources out there for someone to help in this section.
Yeah.
What can we do? Where do we start?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first place to start before anything is just understanding that the memory can be improved no matter
Yeah.
how bad you think your memory is. And most people will say, I'm a terrible memory.
Yeah.
That is not, that is just a label. That is not the truth, right?
Right.
Uh, we all can have an amazing memory. It's in there. It just needs to be given some love and understanding, and you can do a lot more than you think you can. So
I
getting over
suppose that's
that,
a roadblock for a lot of people is just that thought that, oh, I just have a bad memory. And even starting some of these techniques, doing and going, oh, this is bloody ridiculous. I can't do this. And then giving
yeah.
up.
Well, and even just being kind of overwhelmed by how challenging it may seem. People don't like to memorize. It takes a while. It's maybe unreliable compared to writing it down on a piece of paper or in your phone. But with memory techniques, if you learn the proper ones, memorizing actually can become a lot more fun. Listen, I wouldn't have sat down and trained my mind for all these years if it wasn't fun. I do have some twisted kind of a definition of fun, but it truly is a fun experience to dive into my memory palace. When I memorize cards, I love it. Some people who don't know what's going on look at what I'm doing as, oh, he's just got all this colors and numbers. Oh, like 52 of them in order. That sounds terrible. Like what a nightmare. Who would want to do that? But to me, when I go in those cards, I see a whole movie of colorful characters doing silly, bizarre things in places that I've visited and traveled to. It's a whole movie that unfolds in my mind, and I love that. It brings up emotions. It makes me feel connected
Interesting.
to the
Hmm.
images that I have. And so it's a way for me to escape. It's a way for me to meditate, and it's a way for me to improve my memory. So
Seems
that's a
like
lot more.
you got a deck of cards in front of you there, do you?
Yeah, yeah. I have so many. Yeah, some
So
on the floor here.
when you get a deck of cards, how do you memorize that? Do you just flick it through and
Yeah, let me. These are actually a deck for doing a specific magic trick, but I will get a proper deck here. I think this is. Oh, no, that's another.
so if you're listening to the podcast, people jump onto the YouTube channel and we might get a live display here.
Yeah, so here's some cards. Yeah, so when I memorize it, I'm just going like this. Just
Just flicking through the deck. Yep.
yeah. Some people will go faster. They're just like they do two cards at a time. They can just like punch through it like really quickly. But there's always a system to it, and stuff that's abstract. Like you got a value and a suit,
Yeah.
another value and a suit. That adds up, right? If you have 52 cards, but what if every card, instead of it being a number and a suit, is like a visual of a person, right? So yeah, I'll do this one. This one everybody knows, but 10 of spades is to me Steve Jobs. All right. So I don't see this card. I don't see a 10 in all these spades. I see Steve Jobs in his turtleneck, giving a speech. And that's a lot more memorable than this abstract information. The
Right.
next question is probably in your mind is like, how is this 10 of spades? Or how is this
How is that Steve Jobs?
Steve
And
Jobs?
then what are all the other cards you must have?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have 52 people,
Yeah.
and they're all
Wow.
doing different things. But there's a system that I learned to translate this card and other cards into people with that have translate this into letters, which then translate into um, representative words or syllables or initials that represent a person. So if you want the short of it, I mean, the 10, I look at like the 0 as an O. And then the spades is starts with an S, right? So OS makes me think of like a Mac OS, which inevitably makes me think of Apple's former head, which is Steve
Yeah.
Jobs.
Right.
Now, you might think, oh, that's a lot of like cognitive
That's
work to get
yeah.
from this to that. But with training, I don't see that anymore. I don't do that translation. It's like harder for me to explain it to you because I got to remember, oh yeah, that's the O and the S. I look at this and I see Steve Jobs. Like
Right.
it is, if I saw Steve Jobs in a video or in a movie or on stage, an old clip of him, I'm also seeing the 10 of spades. Like he's
Right.
walking 10 of spades. The next one here, this one, 6 of spades, that's the devil. It's Satan. All right. So again, I
Makes
see that
sense.
there. This one is Britney Spears. This one is my friend David. This one is one of my ex-girlfriends. And this one is Stephen Hawking, you know?
Queen of Diamonds, ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah.
How
My wife doesn't like that one.
does it
But
how long did that take you to have a 52 deck cards with people recognition?
to map it all out took a few days
Yeah, wow.
to fill out the whole chart, of who's going to be who. But then, the next step is to master it, to learn it, to be fluent in it, to really get fluent in it, where I have, like I mentioned, just know it. That took, a few months, but to just know it enough to actually start memorizing a deck of cards. As soon as I have the system, if I know the way to translate it, I memorize the deck of cards right after.
Right. So is that the technique adopted by everyone that does the same challenge?
Yeah, there's different ways to go about that specifically, but generally the same idea that, we always want to take the information that we're memorizing and turn it into a mental picture of something that's a
Okay.
lot more associative, meaningful. So people, I think, are quite expressive when you think about them. There's a lot to them. They make you feel a certain way. You can imagine them doing things,
Right.
and that lends itself to being imagined in a more memorable way. So I turn the cards into people. Some people turn them into just things.
Huh.
They might look at the 10 of spades and it's a shoe or something. But
Yeah. So you do that with so imagery is better for our memory or our ability to retain
we
and
remember
recall.
pictures and imagery much better than the abstract information that exists all around us.
Okay.
Um, that's a big part of it. There's another step to it where, you think, okay, maybe one card, two cards. I get what you're saying, Nelson. You can think of a picture that's more memorable. But
Yeah.
how do you remember all 52 of those pictures still, right? In
Yeah.
order. And that comes down to kind of the second part of memory, which is organization and structure and a storage system, a reliable storage system. How do you organize those images so that they're
Mm.
in a format that you can easily retrieve and get back without too much trouble? So there's a few techniques to do this, but the one we do for cards, for example, is one called the memory palace. And it basically has you thinking of a familiar place like your home, and you would place those images attached to different parts of your house along a route. And the idea is when you want to go recall the deck of cards, you go back to the start of your route in your mind. And if you made
Oh
it
yeah.
memorable enough, you'll see the images that were there pertaining to the card. So first card is 10 of spades. It's Steve Jobs. I'm at my house at my front door. Knock, knock, knock. There's Steve Jobs in his turtleneck opening the door and presenting me with Apple products or something, right? And then I walk in the house and boom, there's the devil. Flames everywhere. He's laughing maniacally. He's got his horns and, I can see him. He's like bright red, his tail with a little point at the end. And he's in my hallway, like entryway of the house.
And is that how
And
you do it that at that pace, or is it a lot quicker for you?
well, it's quicker, right? I'm walking through it slow here, describing it, but when I
Yeah.
do it, it's happening in a microsecond,
And so
right?
that same
Each of those.
pathway through your house is the same memory palace that you use.
Well, who?
So when you're saying you're going, through the deck of cards and you're actually, at the front door, walking into the living room, is it the
Yep.
same pathway that you take every time you're trying to remember that?
Oh, I see. No, so I have multiple memory palaces.
Right.
If you just always use the same one, what can happen is you can have echoes of past
Gotcha.
uses.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. So what you can do, especially for training, so with cards, I may do multiple decks a day just as practice. I'll have multiple memory palaces to cycle through. So I'll use one, then I'll use another, and then maybe after a few days, it will have forgotten itself, and I can use it again.
Reuse. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Wow. That's full on.
yeah. But look, to the person listening, it probably sounds like, wow, that's a lot of mental
Yeah.
work. And I understand that, but it's again taking advantage of things that our brains are naturally good at. And if you give it a shot, you'll see it's actually easier than you might think. And once you get a hang of it, it's honestly so intuitive. It's really fascinating to see it in action because
It'd be quite an impressive party trick to be able to say, hey, I can remember this deck of cards, shuffle it, and
sure. Yes, yes. And that leads me to why I wrote this book, because I would do that as a demonstration often over the years. And then people would be like, how did you do that? Like, you must be a genius. And then I have to explain, no, it's just a technique. There was a time when I couldn't do this. And look, here, let's practice. And I maybe walk them through a small example of it and make them realize that it's not
yeah.
as complicated as it seems.
Well, walking, I just imagine a deck of 52 cards on my desk here and me trying to figure out names and associations to each one and then learning that over a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might take me. That challenge actually seems quite exciting and fun to me just thinking
It-
about it now.
yeah.
I don't know
Yeah. I mean,
how I'll do it, but
well, I can give you some more resources to if you truly want to get into it. I mean, it's mentioned in my book as well. But it's a nice way to kind of, again, go deeper into your mind. And, when you fill these cards with images of people in your circles, your family, your friends, celebrities, favorite movie stars, whatever, it's like a nice place to go because you get to go visit your friends. I'll never forget. in 2011, I was climbing on Everest, and every day to pass the time, because there's a lot of downtime, I would memorize cards and memorize my numbers. And a close friend of mine passed away while I was out there. It was a shocking, sudden death. And I remember after that point, it was halfway through the expedition, I'd memorize my cards as I would, and he'd show up. He was in there. And it was like this really like special feeling to be able to
Yeah.
think about him and use him in my memory palace, and that's often happening because these these systems that I have are filled with all the memories of my life.
Yeah, wow, that's good. Um, so talk to us about your daily routine. Actually, no, let's go back. What are one or two things someone could do today to start the training of their memory? Simple things
Yeah,
that you would recommend.
I think the first thing is to look around you and see what are things that you you could memorize every day, that you're maybe writing down or outsourcing to some device or something. Could be as simple as your to-do list, your grocery lists, people's names that you meet or phone numbers that come to you, and then make that effort to try to remember them. Even if
Right.
you don't use the technique per se, just making that effort is already a huge win for building your memory. But then when you add this idea that, okay, whatever I'm trying to memorize, whether it's this list or this person's name, is I'm going to try to think of it as a picture instead of what I see on the paper written in front of me. That's the first thing you can do, and start playing around
Right.
with having having your mind be creative and play around a little bit with the information to make it
Interesting. Yeah.
bizarre, silly, over the top.
Okay, I like that. And for you yourself, what are some of the daily things that you do? Like, how does your daily routine look as far as obviously you got fitness, maybe you do meditation, I'm not sure, but where does the memory piece come into
Yeah, I mean, I start the day. I have four
it?
kids, so I have to start early.
Wow.
But I start with my workout. I'm up at 5, and then my workout starts at 5:30 for about an hour. I come back, do the whole routine with the kids to get them on the bus, school, and then I'm usually doing my memory training after that. Um, I'd like to get it done mostly in the morning, so doing about an hour of that in the morning. But sometimes I spread it out through the day, and sometimes it's me sitting down, like actually memorizing the cards, timing it, doing numbers. But then sometimes my memory training is reviewing information that I've memorized long term. Like recently, we had Pi Day on 314, and I had always a bunch of digits of pi in my mind. So I'll go out driving to do some errands, and I'm constantly reviewing, thousands of digits of pi, and that's part of my memory exercise, right? This stuff is also my business, so a lot of my days are spent teaching others
Yeah,
on
yeah.
one-on-ones and making YouTube videos and all that stuff. It never stops. I have a very busy schedule. My mind never stops. Which I wish I could relax more, but right now it's a crazy wild phase of my life.
And do you recommend people just spend 5 minutes to start with, or like obviously
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that aren't in the
You don't
in
need
the
to spend an
field?
hour like I do.
Yeah.
Just 5-10 minutes a day. I think the most important thing is being consistent. If you can keep at it, just as you might want to keep at being physically active, right? And the gains that come with that versus like doing it once a month, you're not going to see any benefit
Yeah.
there, right? So it's something you gotta really plan out the way you're going to go about it, and how many times a week, the protocol that uh, you're gonna build up to train should be consistent. Yep.
What would be the recall? Like if I said, okay, let's start with, I assume this might be how it works, but a poem, for example, a favorite poem. I'm just going to commit to learning that poem over the next week so I can recall it. Is there a period where you have to come back to it if you want to retain that, or do you find that it actually will stay with you? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that our brains are really good at forgetting,
Yeah,
unless we remember over and over and recall a certain piece of information that's t telling our brains that it's important. And suddenly
right.
its pathway, the highway that we talked about to that piece of information is like a
Gets
bigger multi-lane road now, right?
Yeah.
Versus like a tiny rickety, um, you know,
Yeah.
tiny narrow street. So, you have to review things if you want them to stay for the long term. The nice thing about using memory techniques, though, is that it puts the information in your brain quickly and in a way that's easy to review without much effort, right? You can just go to the location where you placed it, the memory palace, and just think about it. And that's the review. And then the more you do that, the more you review it, the longer it'll stay. Um, and if you stop doing it, of course, it'll eventually fade. But there is this thing where when information is new, if you review it in the right fashion over time, you eventually can get it to a point where it will never leave, right? And
Right.
that's people have experience with that and can relate to that. When you were a kid and there's just certain things that have stuck in your mind.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, that it was reviewed in some way, whether it was your teacher repeating it over and over again or testing you on it, or it's just something that you periodically would always recall, that made it stay for the long term. So managing the
Yeah.
things that you memorize in terms of review is super important.
Yeah. Nice. And tell us a little bit about your adventures. You've got a company, Axe Adventures Incorporated. You've
Yeah.
climbed some of the biggest peaks. You've done Everest 4 times.
Yeah.
When did that enter
Yeah.
the picture?
I started climbing around the same time that I got into memory techniques,
Right.
and fell in love with it. Yeah, back in 2009 as well. And first it was just personal hobby. Like I like the idea of pushing the mind, obviously, and pushing my body as well. And climbing mountains is a cool way to do that. But I realized quickly that it could also serve as a way to raise awareness for what I was doing with my memory and the
Yeah.
cause that got me started, which is Alzheimer's. And so I started a charity called Climb for Memory, where I was climbing for Alzheimer's and raising money for research. Over the years, I expanded that a little bit to be more of a inclusive kind of experience and created a company that just creates these memorable experiences for people on mountains. And it's a side business, so I'm not always in the mountains, but like once a year or twice a year, I'll organize some bucket list kind of hikes, adventures around the world. So we do Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, what else? Cotopaxi, which is a volcano in Ecuador, Aconcagua, which is the tallest peak in South America. And we're
Wow.
organizing trips for anybody to join, and also climb for the cause.
Nice. Like it. What's the most challenging mountain you've done?
Oh man, I mean Everest is I've climbed on it 4 times. I've not summited. I've gotten very close so many times, and it's this kind of thing that eludes me. One day I'll get it, but I have to say that one's been the most challenging because I've
Oh
gotten so
man.
close, and not made it to the very top. I got within 50 meters was my
Really?
closest. Yeah,
Wow. Bloody hell.
yeah.
That's
You
cool.
could have thrown a rock to the top. Yeah.
That's amazing. Mate, awesome conversation. Lots more obviously in the book. How can people, I'll stick the book link in the show notes here for everyone listening, so make sure you reach out, grab a copy. But how can people best reach out to you, find out more about you and your work?
Yep. They can go to my website, nelsondellis.com. Everything's there. But if you want like immediate ways to learn about memory, check out my YouTube channel. Also, just search for my name on YouTube and give me a little follow, and you'll learn a few things.
And I got one final question for you. How has it
Yep.
affected your dream world, if at
Oh, like my
all?
dreams?
Yeah.
Oof. It's funny because in some parts of it, like I've always been terrible at remembering dreams. But when I pay more attention to them and I make it more of an effort to remember them, I do remember a lot of
Yeah.
them. But I have to be in the right mindset when I go to bed,
Right.
to do it. But I definitely think that my dreams and my imagination in general are a lot wilder,
Yeah.
uh, and that makes it more memorable. Probably it's feeding itself, right? With memory training, I've become a lot more imaginative and creative, and I think that leads into the dream world for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Um, Mate, excellent conversation. Nelson Dellis, everyone out there, check out the show notes at thehiddenwhy.com. Nelson, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Cheers for listening, guys. Peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Awesome.
Great.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to this interview. I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had. Make sure you check it out at thehiddenwhy.com for all the show notes and links to our guest. And if you have any comments, any suggestions for the show, please make sure you reach out as well. Also, would like to just ask a favor. If you do like what you're listening to, if you love what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. Whether you're listening to this on iTunes, wherever it might be, subscribe to the podcast so you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes and some exciting changes happening this year at The Hidden Why, including the launch of our new website, which will be updated very soon. So watch this space for that, guys. And once again, live more fully, have more meaning, find more joy. We'll see you around the next interview.